All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to have part of the major fairs is a presentation from psychology advisor. So please get some questions at the end of it for a quick Q&A, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Throughout the presentation, if you have a question, you're encouraged to drop that in the chat box, which is in your lower screen. It says chat. It's got a little chat bubble, or you can use the hand raise feature, and we can stop to answer questions, or we can hold them until the end. Whatever works best. So if everyone would give our full attention to Miss Jade Sharon, who is the psychology advisor in the College of Arts and Sciences. She's got some information to present about the psychology major this morning.
Cool. So I didn't make like a big presentation. I figured I'll just pull up GPS and just kind of run through the requirements for the major. So I can share my screen. So everyone should be seeing like a GPS here, Mr. Blaze Dragon, just like a thumbs up if you can see it. Okay, cool. So for the psychology major, all the core requirements, those are things you have to do regardless. So I'm just going to skip on down to the major. For the psychology major, obviously, we'll start off with Psych 101, Introduction to Psychology, because that's a requirement, for additional psychology courses. But then you take other coursework in these foundational psychology courses that give you a good idea of the different branches of psychology. So you've got developmental psychology, learning about human development from infancy through adulthood. Research literacy is teaching you how to read and write in a scientific format, like APA style. Then we've got elementary statistics, methods in that lab. So it's 4 hours because you have a lab along with it, and it's teaching about statistics for the social sciences. So there's a bit of math involved. So you have to do math prior to statistics. Then we've got abnormal psychology. That is the class everyone wants to take. When you think about psychology, it's looking at mental health disorders, how they present themselves. And then we've got brain-mind behavior, which is looking at functions of the brain. So it's kind of looking at the other side of abnormal psychology, like what's the neuroscience, like things that go on in the brain to cause those disorders. I usually like to start off with those introductory psychology courses and kind of get a feel for what you're interested in. And then you'll get into your upper level electives. You've got 5 total of these. So these are psychology electives at the 300 and the 400 level, but you have more flexibility in picking these out. So it's not a specific list like the other courses that I just mentioned here. So anything at the psychology 300, 400 level that you're interested in, these electives kind of vary semester by semester, and we can really tailor that to what you're interested in. So let's say you're interested in abnormal psychology. We've got things like clinical child psychology. Maybe you're interested in neuroscience. We've got things like that. Maybe you're interested in learning about autism and other mental health disorders. We have an applied behavior analysis course, which is learning about autism, psychotherapy, behavior change, other special topics courses like substance abuse, toxicology, behavioral addictions, child psychopathology. So lots of options. We can really tailor that to what you're interested in. The other component that's important for the psychology major is our research sequence. So you'll do a lot of research-based courses, research literacy and stats. That gives you the foundation in reading, writing in the scientific format. So like qualitative data analysis, and then also quantitative data analysis with statistics that you'll take in with you to research methods, where you design and conduct your own experiments. So you have to do research literacy and stats first, then methods. And then we have the psychology capstone course, which is a combination, like a culmination of everything you've learned in those research courses prior to that. But it's also looking at psychology from the career perspective. So you do a portfolio project where you pretend like you're applying to a grad program or a job that you're interested in. You get to submit a resume, cover letter, personal statement, things like that, and then get feedback on it from your instructor. So we try to time out that capstone course to semester before you graduate. So that way you have more time to use the skills that you learn in this class to implement it to your real life job search. And then so that's the overview of the major here. psychology is one of those majors where you get lots of skills in different areas. So definitely research, organizational skills, teamwork, things like that. And that translates well into lots of different jobs. I also have more and more students who are interested in counseling, therapy, things like that. And we do have this new mental health certificate where you could take additional coursework in mental health related electives, and then also do a practicum course, the community-based practicum where you volunteer at a community setting somewhere like the crisis center, and you could get class credit for that as part of your mental health certificate. So it's really only 3 extra classes. You don't have to have a psych major to add that certificate, but more and more students are adding it just because it's only 3 extra classes for them. Another thing that we offer is practicum courses where you could do hands-on experience and like research in a faculty-led research lab, TAing, working as a teaching assistant for a psychology course, or even still that community-based practicum just for a hands-on experience. That's something you could do regardless whether or not you have the mental health certificate. And we usually encourage those for students to get hands-on experience in the areas that they're interested in. And overall, it's pretty flexible. I'll kind of open it up for questions here and see if anyone has any questions.
With a psychology degree, is there like another route I could take besides ABA within the special needs community? So besides ABA, what can I do with a psychology degree to help the special needs community like I want to do?
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, psychology is one of those things you could do lots of different things with it, like research, human resources, teaching, and also like the special needs area. If you're thinking of going that ABA route and like want to help out with those special needs children, I would recommend that mental health certificate, getting some practicum experience there. But more than likely, you would be looking at graduate school, like after psychology, especially if you want to do something working with teaching or like getting a certification. We do offer like the master's in counseling here at UAB. I don't know if that's exactly what you'd be interested in, but if you're looking for something other than like the ABA stuff, you still want to like help people and gain skills in that area, I do that counseling. They have 3 different types of that counseling masters. There's mental health, school counseling, and marriage, families, couple counseling. So a couple of different areas you could take it that way. But if you are interested in the ABA route, we do have lots of courses like that, such as applied behavior analysis. We also have a psychotherapy behavior change course and creative arts therapies. And I would recommend doing that practicum to get experience there. Also, as part of the psych degree, you have a lot of research courses. And maybe you're interested in research in that area. We could do things like that. That's something that's already written into the degree. So maybe you'll kind of fall into it and see if you like that. And then just generally with the courses that you have to do, you're exposed to lots of other areas in psychology. Can I add a minor easily with this major? Yes. So with the psych major, how I like to describe it to people is that 1/3 of your degree is your core, 1/3 is psychology, and that last third could be general electives or a minor to get you up to the 120 that you need in order to graduate. So with psychology, it's only around 40 credit hours. So it's very, very easy to add in a minor with that. It's not required to do with a psychology major, but we highly encourage it. So that way you can make your electives more focused in a particular area rather than just taking random classes, which I mean, you could if you wanted to. But the way I like to describe minors is it's something you could do for fun, just because you're interested in it, or it's something you could do to gain additional skills in that area. And then also, like I mentioned, the mental health certificate, I would kind of think of that as a minor as well. It's really only 3 extra classes as part of the certificate. You have to do intro to psychology and abnormal, both of which are already required for the major. And then you just have 3 extra classes, 2 being mental health electives, and then 1 being that practicum course. So it's already written into that certificate. So some other popular minors that I see with psychology are things like social work, sociology, communication, management, forensic psychology is another popular one, criminal justice. And we can really tailor that to what you're interested in. Other majors that can support a psychology degree, kind of like on the same lines, they're 1/3 core, 1/3 your major. So if you want to add a double major, that's something we could do. With psychology, we'll just kind of have to time it out and work with both major advisors to make sure it all works. Great thing about the psych major is that all of our courses are offered every semester, including the summer. The electives, those kind of vary based on the semester. So some of those will be semester specific, but there's always going to be those 300, 400 level electives that you need to meet your requirements. But those required courses and the research classes, those are every semester, including the summer. And there's always online options. We have students who do the psychology degree fully online. So it's very flexible to add in majors, minors, take classes over the summer, get you done as quick as you want. Yeah, other majors, it kind of goes along the same line as minors that I see, like social work, criminal justice, communication. I had another student, I met with her last week and she wanted a double major in communication management. I think that kind of goes well. I also have a lot of students who do psychology as their major with the intention of going to like med school or psychiatry, or just other professional schools like occupational therapy, physical therapy, things like that. So with those professional school routes, you obviously have to do more sciences, and that takes up a lot of your elective space. But with psychology, we do have room for that as part of your elective space. So we can definitely add in those prerequisites for professional schools if that's something that you're interested in. Are there specific requirements a student must meet before declaring this major? No, you can declare it anytime. There's no specific requirements there. I think the only thing is that we'd want to get Psych 101 out of the way first, and that opens up more for you. Something else that I didn't mention is for psychology, we have a biochem physics requirement. So students have to take a certain amount of biology, chemistry, or physics courses. So with your core sciences, you are a bit more limited in those courses because we don't accept like environmental science or astronomy towards that biochem physics requirement. And then also depends if you're doing a pre-health route, you already do all those sciences regardless. So that's another thing to keep in mind with the Bachelor of Science in Psychology. You have to do more science-y biochem physics courses. The two that I recommend is Topics in Contemporary Biology and Introductory Chemistry. Those are the two easiest ways, or the two easiest sciences to knock out both those requirements without having to do like additional math. Okay, so as a psychology major, what benefits are there for a student in future terms? So I guess you're kind of referring to like long-term career plans, like after graduation. So like I said, with the psych major, you gain a lot of additional skills in like research, organizational, critical thinking skills, definitely communication and teamwork. So those are things that all general employers are looking for. Like if you look at the Career Center website and see what are the core competencies that employers are looking for, those are all pretty high up on the list. So I think all of those things as a psychology major, you gain a lot of those skills that are transferable to like several types of jobs. And then students will come in and ask me like, what can I like get a job in with psychology? And it sounds like a cop out when I say, well, like, what do you want to do? You could do anything, but it's really true. It's flexible enough that we could tailor it to what you're interested in. We could do the practicum courses so that you can get firsthand experience in areas that you're interested in. I have students tell me they're interested in counseling. I'm like, okay, well, let's do some volunteer hours at the crisis center. You get firsthand experience in that, see if you actually like it. Because it's one thing to say that you want to do it and then we plan for it, but then you don't get that experience till after you graduate. And you're like, ooh, actually, I don't know. Being able to do those practicum courses and get class credit for it is something that I highly encourage students to do to get that firsthand experience. And then it also gives you the opportunity for like networking, getting your foot in the door. I had a student, she did her practicum course at Family Connection, which is a center for like at-risk youth. And she got to help them with like life coaching skills. And then after she finished up with her internship, they actually offered her a full-time job. She got class credit for it. And obviously when you're doing an internship for class credit, you get paid in class credit. So you're not getting paid with money, and you can't get paid for that if you want to get class credit for it, but it doesn't mean it won't happen eventually in the future. And having it on your resume is something you can put out there that you have that experience is all good things. But then I think another big benefit for psychology that a lot of people don't realize till they get into it is the research component. You have to take so many of these research classes and you may not like them in the moment. Like you think, oh my God, I don't want to do statistics. Like, ugh. But you get really good skills out of it, critical thinking, analytical skills, and math. I mean, we use math all the time every day, whether or not you want to admit it. So all of those skills I do think work for long-term career planning. It could be applied to lots of different areas. For this major, would you recommend going to school year-round in order to complete the bachelor's degree timely? So, I mean, if you want to, how I like to describe it to students is if you want to graduate in that 4-year plan, so we have to get to 120 hours total. If you take about 5 classes, 15 hours all spring, 30 hours per year, that will keep you on track for the 4 years. You don't have to do summer classes, but if you wanted to do summer classes, I would say let's space out your classes a little bit more, maybe do 4 over fall and spring and then like 1 or 2 in the summer. So that way it's still at 30 hours. Or if you want to graduate early, I mean, go for it. But I have students who come in and say they want to graduate early, and then it gets closer and closer to graduation. Like, ooh, actually, now I have to go out into the real world. So how can I extend this a little bit? So I do think students get preoccupied with like graduating early and getting right out to it. But there are lots of skills that you will gain throughout your college career, firsthand experience, coursework, and things like that. So I don't see any issue with like extending it out to the 4 years. And is there a certain path that you recommend that students take? As far as career-wise, no. I usually kind of leave it open-ended for the student and ask, like, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And then we kind of plan it out from there. As far as a certain path as classes, yes, that research sequence, we want to stay on top of that because it's at least 3 semesters, depending on how you go through it. And for students who are transferring in from psychology, maybe they had a different major and they changed over to psychology. That's something that I try to make them aware of, like right off the bat. Like there's this research sequence, it will take you at least 3 semesters. So let's make sure that we stay on top of that so that we can still graduate within your anticipated graduation goal and that we don't get behind on that. Career path, what you want to do after, we just talk about it and go from there, and we really tailor it to what you want. Ooh, I like this question. What is the most exciting aspects of this major? The thing that I like about it the most as someone who advises for it is the flexibility with it. Your upper level electives at the 300 and the 400 level, you really get to do whatever you want those to be. So you can really tailor it to what you want. I think another exciting aspect of the major is that we have those practicum courses. I think it's really cool that we offer practicum courses in 3 different areas. We have the teaching practicum where you could work as a teaching assistant for psychology courses, the community-based practicum where you could volunteer in other areas like the crisis center, maybe clinics for like shadowing for professional school stuff, courtrooms if you're interested in the law aspect, and also research. You could work in a faculty-led research lab and get credit for that. Because there's other majors where you have to do an internship and it's just like the one thing to get it knocked out and then you're done. But with psychology, we offer those practicum courses. They're not necessarily required, but I do highly encourage them. And you have like, just on the surface, you have 3 different options, teaching, community, or research. But then once you actually look into each of those, it's really up to you to where you want to do your practicums. Where I usually direct students is to the, let's say you're interested in the community-based practicum, you want to do some volunteer work. I usually refer students to the Service Learning website under our Community Partners tab and look under our highlighted partners. And I'll just show you on the screen here. These are like all the different categories that you could look into. We want to find something related to psychology, so like good health and well-being is a good place to start. And these are all different organizations in and around Birmingham that you could volunteer with. So some examples I've seen students have success with is the Crisis Center, Family Connection, Fellowship House. There's also Glenwood Autism Behavioral Health Center, Mitchell's Place. Oh yeah, the Shelby County Children's Advocacy Center. And these are all areas that you could work with. You don't necessarily have to stick to this list, but that's where I usually direct students. And you get to reach out to those organizations directly to say, hey, I'm interested in doing some volunteer work for psychology credit. How would I go about that? What are the requirements? And then the time commitment. If you need 3 credit hours for it to count as one of your electives, and that time commitment would be about 8 to 10 hours per week. So it's pretty manageable. And then research, maybe you're interested in working in like research areas. You get to pick out faculty members you're interested in working with, or you could look at different research labs already happening and then join that way. So we have things like aging, child and adolescent development, health disparities, language, neural structure and function, obesity and eating behavior, pain, rehab, transportation and safety is a big one. There's a UAB trip lab where they analyze driving behaviors in like teens versus adults and like come up with like safe driving methods. And that's something like Dr. Stavronos, she's our one of our psychology faculty members, and she is in the trip lab there, and they do lots of really cool stuff over there. So I think those are the most exciting aspects, the flexibility of it, and then that hands-on experience that you could get. The biggest challenge for students in this major, I honestly think probably those research courses, just because I know psychology majors at other institutions don't have as much of the emphasis on the research component. So some students may come in thinking, ooh, psychology, I just get to learn about mental health disorders and brain stuff. But there is more research involved with it here at UAB. That research literacy course specifically is something that was designed by the psychology faculty here. And it's a UAB specific course where you really practice your reading, writing skills in that APA style. So it is a fair amount of reading and writing. Try to separate that from your literature or history courses just to make sure you have more time to focus on it. But that course was designed so that students don't get to the capstone course and like can't do the writing assignments in capstone. Some students find that challenging because they've never written in a scientific format before, and it's like a learning curve to learn it. But once you know how to do it, it's like riding a bike. You can do it. Like something that you may not have done before. And so that is a challenge, but then once you do it, you have it good to go. And then statistics, math, and everybody wants to do that. But again, the skills that you get out of both of those courses, and then research methods, you get to design and conduct your own experiments, which is pretty cool. I think that would be the biggest challenge. And then along with that research component of it is also the fact that it's 3 semesters that kind of confuses students, especially if we want to graduate within a certain time frame. That's something that we need to make sure that we stay on top of. So if you want to graduate by a certain date, and maybe you have to take a summer class to stay on track for that sequence, because they're all sequential. Because you have to do research literacy and stats, then methods, then capstone. So some students are like, well, can I not just combine them? Like, no, we have to do them in order for you to be successful. So that might be a challenge also if a student's trying to graduate within the next semester or two. But then, because some students think you could do most majors in 2 semesters, but it's actually closer to 3 or 4, depending on the major. But for psychology, specifically with that sequence, it'll be at least 3 semesters. Why do students typically select this major? Psychology is one of the biggest growing majors here at UAB. I'm one of 4 psychology advisors. So Layla Torres and we do the psychology on-ground students, so for people who are here in person. And between us, we probably have 700, 800 students. And then we also have the psychology online program where it's also split between 2 advisors. I don't know that it's as high as the on-ground population, but I think a reason why a lot of people pick psychology is because it's really flexible, because our courses are offered every semester. We have some online options, and you have the flexibility in picking out a lot of those electives. I think most people also maybe think of psychology like psychology is fun, get to learn about the brain, behavior. So it's also just a fun major. They maybe don't consider the research component of it, like I mentioned. But then once they get into it and realize the skills that they gain out of it, real life experience, that's why I think a lot of people pick that. But I think probably the biggest component is the flexibility of it, which I enjoy. Important skill to have in psychology. I probably think the most important skill to have would be reading and writing needs to be strong suit, and then analytical and critical thinking skills. Those are all really important to the psych major. But if you don't already have them, you will learn them as part of the major. But once you get into those upper level psychology electives, there will be more of a reading and writing component. So you do want to be strong in that area, being able to read and write. But that's also something you learn as part of the major. So that research literacy course will cover you in that regard. Because my major, when I was undergrad, I did international studies and world languages, the concentration in French. And here I am as an academic advisor for psychology. Your major some people get really hooked on like, what job can I do with this major? And a lot of the times your major may not line up exactly with what your job is. Like the major may not line up exactly with the job. So, and that's okay. You gain lots of additional skills that could be used in lots of areas. I think a big thing for me when I was going through college was being able to pick up communication skills, critical thinking, analytical skills, and like firsthand experience on areas I was interested in. All of those things served me well into my career moving forward. Being in a professional environment and like holding myself in a professional manner, being able to look at GPS and picking out my own classes, that's something that helped me going into this career. Computer skills is another one I don't think I mentioned. As part of that statistics course, you learn how to use specific computer software. So computer skills is another one. Critical thinking, organizational, and definitely teamwork. There's a lot of group work in the psychology courses, especially with research methods and stats. So being able to work in a team environment is very important for real life outside of college, like career wise as well. So that's an important skill to have. A lot of students who drop out of psychology, no, not usually. The only scenario that I've seen people, I guess, drop out of psychology is if they're interested in another major and they want to pursue that. But I'll tell you, a lot of the times I have students changing their majors from other areas to psychology because it's more flexible. Nursing is another one that I get. Students start off as like nursing and then maybe they don't get into the nursing program, switching over to psychology because they already have some psychology coursework there. But I don't know the numbers specifically of like how many people start with psychology and graduate with that. But in my personal experience, I don't see a lot of them dropping psychology. It's just they either change their major or a lot of people are coming to psychology. So I think some of the more popular careers that I've seen, research is a big one, going into like research, maybe marketing, like analytics, because psychology is like studying behavior in humans, but also like non-human animals. Human resources is another one. We have coursework in industrial organizational psychology, which is looking at like psychology in the workplace, hiring procedures, things like that. So human resources is another one. Some people do psychology, go on to law school, pursue career in law. That's another one. We have a psychology and law course that would help towards that. Forensic psychology courses. Teaching is another one. Typically students maybe have to like major in education, have like psychology minor and like other coursework there, but teaching is another route. Or I guess when I say minor education, that's if they want to teach like K through 12 or like high school, things like that. But maybe if you're interested in teaching psychology at like the college level, we can go on and get like a doctorate in that and teach psychology, college, politics, public service, things like that. And those are all kind of things at the bachelor's level. Maybe if you want to go on to like getting your doctorate or like maybe your master's, some popular areas I see there are like counseling, mental health counseling, family, marriage, couples counseling, or school counseling. Social work is another one that kind of pairs well with psychology. Also criminal justice, forensic psychology. Students go on to like continue their education in that regard. So those are some of the popular ones that I've seen. It's personal, but again, there's no like, what can I get a job in with psychology? Like there's no set path. There's lots of different paths you could go on. Yes, psychology could be a minor. The minor is only 6 classes. You have to do Psych 101. I think 2 100 level to 400 level electives.
I think you need developmental psychology for the minor, maybe.
So you definitely need 101. Developmental could count, but you have to have 2 electives at the 100 level or above, and then 3 electives at the 300 level or above. The developmental psych could definitely count, and it's a good one to take after 101 for sure. Abnormal psychology is probably another popular one, and then some other electives after that, like clinical child psychology, applied behavior analysis, industrial organizational personality is another big one. But most of the 300 level electives in psych just have that 101 as a prerequisite. There are a couple of other ones that maybe have other prerequisites like brain, mind, behavior, or abnormal. So that's something you do want to pay attention to with the minor. And then we have lots of special topics courses like substance abuse, behavioral addictions, child psychopathology, race and ethnic relations is another one. And then for some of those 400 level electives, research literacy is a prerequisite. However, if you're just doing the minor and you maybe don't want to do the research literacy class or the minor, it could count if you want it to. But a lot of times we can email the professor for that 400 level elective that you're interested in and ask if it's possible for you to do that course without having research literacy for the minor. But as long as they approve it, we can put an override and get that added for you. Oh my gosh, is it okay to have business as your minor? That's one that I forgot. That's one of like the most popular minors that I see with psychology, like business administration. So yes, I have a lot of students who do psychology as their major with the intention of maybe doing like opening their own practice or doing business, marketing, sales, things like that. So business administration, yes, that's a very popular one that I see, and we could definitely make that work with the psych major.